Aaron Bryant stood at the kitchen window, absently watching snowflakes gather on the porch. It was Thanksgiving, though it felt anything but festive. The chill outside mirrored the mood within the house, tense, strained, filled with ghosts of the past. At 34, Aaron had become the anchor of the family, carrying the weight of practicality on his shoulders since his sisters vanished. Yet even he couldn't shake the unsettled feeling that came every year, a grim reminder of their loss. His mother, Elaine, moved quietly around the dining room, placing dishes with meticulous care. Her auburn hair, now streaked generously with gray, was neatly pulled back, her gentle face lined with years of suppressed grief. She paused briefly, staring blankly at the two empty chairs that had remained untouched for 16 long years. Richard Bryant stood carving the turkey, his eyes focused but distant. Once robust and cheerful, he now carried a quiet sorrow that aged him prematurely. His once black hair was mostly silver, his face etched with deep wrinkles that spoke of restless nights and unanswered questions. Aaron watched his younger sister Zoe enter the room carrying a bowl of mashed potatoes. Zoe had inherited their mother's delicate features, yet there was a fierceness in her that sometimes startled Aaron. She'd been barely 13 when Kara and Danielle disappeared, but the years had done nothing to dampen her determination to find answers. Today, her expression was tight, controlled, as if bracing for an inevitable storm. The family took their seats quietly, the scrape of chairs echoing softly in the heavy silence. Aaron reached across the table to help Zoe with the salad bowl, their eyes meeting briefly. A shared understanding passed between them, the painful resignation that some wounds simply didn't heal. "Richard," Elaine began softly, her voice breaking the silence like fragile glass. "Would you say grace?" Richard cleared his throat awkwardly and nodded, bowing his head. "Lord," he began hesitantly, "we thank you for the food on this table and for family. We pray tonight, as we always do, that you watch over Kara and Danielle, wherever they may be, and give us peace. Amen." "Amen," the family echoed weakly as they began passing dishes around. Zoe suddenly spoke, up, unable to hold back her thoughts any longer. "Do you think they'll ever find them?" Elaine's fork paused mid-air. Richard looked sharply at his daughter, eyes narrowed. "Zoe, let's not do this tonight." "Why not tonight?" Zoe countered, the edge in her voice growing sharper. "Every Thanksgiving we pretend like nothing happened. They're still missing. We can't keep acting as though ignoring it will bring them back." Richard set down his fork, a wave of visible frustration crossing his face. "We've tried. Zoe, the police tried. Everyone tried. 16 years and nothing." "But it's not nothing," Zoe persisted, her eyes glistening. "They're our sisters." Aaron finally broke in, his voice steady and firm. "And it's even harder when we keep reopening the wound. We've done all we can. We have to move forward." Zoe turned sharply toward Aaron, hurt etched deeply in her eyes. "How can you say that, Aaron?" A heavy, painful silence descended on the room again, suffocating everyone at the table. Aaron instantly regretted the harshness of his words. He reached out to Zoe, but she pulled back, hurt and disappointed. Elaine quietly whispered, her voice trembling, "Please, not tonight. Not tonight." Zoe pushed her chair back abruptly, tears now visible. "I can't pretend anymore." She walked briskly from the room, leaving a charged silence behind. Richard stared down at his plate, jaw clenched tightly. Elaine quietly wiped tears from her eyes, trembling slightly. Aaron sighed, feeling suddenly weary and guilty. The silence stretched unbearably, broken only by the soft hum of the refrigerator in the background. It was always like this every Thanksgiving, tensions rising to the surface, grief expressed in anger and bitterness. Never fully resolved. Aaron's phone suddenly buzzed against the dining room table, startling everyone from their troubled silence. Glancing down, he saw Detective Nora Reeves's name flash urgently on the screen. A jolt of unease shot through him. Reeves hadn't called the family in months. He quickly stepped away from the table, phone in hand, and moved toward the kitchen, for privacy. "Detective Reeves." Aaron's voice was cautious, his heart beating uncomfortably fast. "Aaron," her voice was serious, quiet. "Sorry to interrupt your holiday, but we found something. You need to see this right away." Aaron's grip tightened around the phone, his pulse quickening. "What is it? Is it about Kara and Danielle?" "Yes," Reeves replied carefully, hesitating slightly. "I don't want to discuss details over the phone. Can you meet me tonight?" Aaron felt a tightness in his chest, a swirl of hope and dread. "Where?" "Meet me at the old ranger station near Barlow Woods," she said firmly. "And Aaron, come alone." The line went silent as Aaron slowly lowered the phone, his mind racing. Elaine stood in the kitchen doorway, her eyes searching his face. "Aaron, what's going on?" He forced a reassuring tone. "Nothing to worry about, Mom. Detective Reeves just needs me to look at something." Her face paled slightly, her voice shaking. "Is it the girls?" Aaron hesitated, carefully choosing his words. "She's not sure yet. Let me find out before we tell Dad or Zoe." Elaine nodded weakly, turning back toward the dining room, worry evident in her trembling shoulders. As Aaron grabbed his jacket and keys, stepping into the cold night air, his mind swam with possibilities and fears. The heavy, shadowy silence of Thanksgiving night seemed to press upon him, whispering reminders of all the unanswered questions haunting their lives. He quickly started the car, feeling the urgency of Detective Reeves's words sinking in. Tonight, finally, after 16 long years, they might get closer to knowing what truly happened to Kara and Danielle. It was a clear, cool autumn morning, sunlight streaming gently through the golden crimson leaves lining Crestwood Park's trails. Kara Bryant tightened her ponytail as she glanced over at Danielle, who finished adjusting her shoe. Kara, at 17, exuded quiet confidence, protective of Danielle, who at 15 admired everything about her older sister. They'd run these trails countless times, a comforting routine before school. "Ready?" Kara asked with an encouraging smile. Danielle nodded, bouncing lightly on her feet. "Let's go. I have a quiz first period. Need the adrenaline." Kara laughed softly, leading the way onto the familiar wooded path. They moved with practiced ease, their footsteps creating a rhythmic pattern against the dirt trail. The sisters fell into their usual comfortable silence, each lost in their thoughts, enjoying the calmness of early morning. Halfway along the route, Danielle slowed, her breathing slightly uneven. "Wait a second." Kara stopped, concerned. "You okay?" "Just catching my breath," Danielle said, forcing a smile. "I'm good." Kara nodded, patiently waiting as Danielle steadied herself. She gently squeezed her sister's shoulder. "No rush. We've got time." A faint rustling in the brush nearby caught Kara's attention. She turned cautiously toward the noise, feeling suddenly uneasy. Danielle noticed her sister's apprehension, looking up with uncertainty. "What is it?" "Probably nothing," Kara murmured, her eyes still scanning the trees. "Let's keep moving." They started again, quicker now, both aware of a vague discomfort that lingered in the air. Kara kept glancing behind, unable to shake the feeling they weren't alone. She moved closer to Danielle, subtly protective. At the trail's end, as they rounded a sharp bend leading toward the main road, Kara froze, startled. A parked van blocked their path, unusual for such an early hour. Two shadowy figures emerged, their faces obscured by hats and sunglasses. Fear surged through Kara's chest as she instinctively pulled Danielle closer. "Run!" Kara whispered urgently. But before either girl could move, hands grabbed at them roughly, muffling their screams. Danielle struggled, eyes wide with terror, reaching desperately for Kara. The sisters' eyes locked in a final desperate plea before darkness consumed them both. Aaron drove cautiously toward the old ranger station near Barlow Woods. The road was dark and deserted, his heart pounding fiercely, hands tight on the steering wheel. It felt surreal, retracing steps he had hoped never to take again. Detective Nora Reeves was waiting, leaning against her unmarked car, bundled in a heavy coat. Reeves, in her mid-40s, had been on the case since its earliest days, someone Aaron had come to respect deeply. "What did you find?" Aaron asked, stepping quickly toward her. Reeves motioned silently for him to follow. Using a flashlight, she led him down a narrow trail into the dense woods. The trees loomed silently overhead, their silhouettes stark against the faint glow of distant streetlights. Aaron felt dread building with every step. They arrived at a small clearing cordoned off with bright yellow tape. Several forensic technicians quietly examined the site, carefully collecting evidence. Reeves directed Aaron's attention toward items neatly laid on a plastic tarp: 2 pairs of shoes, familiar bracelets, and a torn, faded jacket. Aaron's chest tightened painfully, memories flooding back. Those were theirs. Reeves nodded solemnly. They were found buried. Someone was trying to hide this. Aaron knelt beside the tarp, eyes burning, fighting to keep composed. He touched Danielle's bracelet gently, the once bright beads now dull and dirt-stained. 16 years. How did we miss this? Reeves sighed softly, her voice filled with sympathy and quiet frustration. "We combed these woods a dozen times. Whoever hid these knew exactly how to keep us from finding them." Aaron stood slowly, his jaw clenched with determination. Then someone knows something. Someone's been lying all these years. Reeves studied him carefully, recognizing his resolve. "Aaron, let us handle this, please." He met her eyes, nodding reluctantly, even as he silently resolved to find answers himself. He knew the police would move methodically, but after 16 years, methodical was no longer good enough. "I understand," Aaron said quietly, his eyes fixed on the belongings. "But don't expect me to sit back this time." Reeves hesitated, sensing the futility of arguing. Instead, she offered quietly, "We'll find them, Aaron, wherever this leads us." Late that evening, alone in his small apartment, Aaron spread the police files across his kitchen table, meticulously studying. Each page, a soft lamp cast dim shadows, lending a somber atmosphere as he sifted through reports, maps, and photographs from earlier searches. One photo caught his attention immediately: a torn, partially burnt image discovered with the buried items. Aaron's breath quickened as he brought the picture closer under the lamp's glow. Clearly visible were Kara and Danielle, wrists tied, seated on a floor in an unknown location. Their frightened expressions sent chills through him. Aaron studied the photograph carefully, trying to control his racing thoughts. His eyes traced every inch of the background, searching for anything distinct. His pulse quickened as he spotted something the police had clearly missed: a partially visible sign behind the sisters reading "Nerd." Beside it was a unique stone monument he recognized immediately from drives he'd taken years ago near the old abandoned farmland north of town. Heart pounding, Aaron grabbed his coat, deciding instantly he'd go himself. He knew calling Reeves meant delays, protocols, time they couldn't spare. Aaron arrived at Zoe's doorstep half an hour later, breathing heavily from both urgency and adrenaline. She answered quickly, surprise and concern evident. "Aaron, it's late. What's going on?" "I found something," he said quickly, stepping inside without waiting. "You need to see it." He showed her the photograph under her hallway light. Zoe's hand trembled visibly as she studied the image, her eyes wide. "Oh my God. Where did you get this?" "It was in the police file," Aaron explained rapidly. "Look in the background." Zoe squinted closely, recognition dawning slowly. "Turner Road? Isn't that by the old farms?" "Exactly." Aaron nodded grimly. "I'm going out there now, but I needed someone else to know." Zoe hesitated, clearly torn. Shouldn't we call Reeves first? No, Aaron replied sharply. The police had this and missed it. This might be our only chance. Zoe stared at the photograph again, her face pale with tension. I don't like this, Aaron, but I get it. What about Mom and Dad? Aaron shook his head firmly. They can't handle more false hope. Not yet. Just trust me. Zoe finally nodded reluctantly, handing back the photograph. We'll need to be careful. We will, Aaron said, firmly pocketing the photo and stepping back outside into the night. He looked at Zoe one last time before getting into his car. This stays between us, at least for now. As they took off, the weight of the moment pressed heavily upon her, praying silently that this time, after 16 years, they might finally uncover the truth that had eluded them all. Aaron glanced sideways at Zoe as they stepped deeper into the dense forest near Turner Road. They moved quietly, each step crunching softly on frost-covered leaves. The crisp morning air bit sharply at Aaron's face, but his senses were too alert, too heightened, to care about the cold. How much farther? Zoe whispered, her voice strained. Aaron studied the photograph again, checking landmarks against the surroundings. It has to be close. That stone monument should be just ahead. They continued carefully, scanning their surroundings until Aaron suddenly stopped, arm extended. There, he murmured. Through a thick veil of tangled branches, a crumbling stone marker stood like a ghostly sentinel. Just beyond, nearly hidden by ivy and brush, was an old weathered shack. It appeared abandoned, forgotten, perfect for hiding something sinister. Aaron's pulse quickened as he approached the small building. Zoe stayed close behind, cautious but determined. The structure was barely larger than a shed, its wooden door warped and slightly ajar. Aaron gently pushed it open, wincing at the squeal of rusted hinges. Inside, they were greeted by damp, musty air and shadows, softened only by thin streams of daylight through holes in the roof. The floor was strewn with debris and dead leaves. Slowly, their eyes adjusted to the dim interior. Aaron moved carefully forward, his heart hammering in his chest. Look, Zoe said softly, pointing to a far corner. There, attached to the wooden wall, were rusted metal chains bolted firmly into the aged timber. Aaron knelt beside them, fingers tracing the links, his throat tightening painfully. Someone was held here, he said hoarsely. Zoe's voice trembled. Aaron, look at the wall. He turned to see Zoe's hand hovering just above faint scratches etched into the wood, barely legible initials, KB and DB. Aaron felt a chill race through him. Kara and Danielle had been here, their presence marked forever in these desperate letters. Aaron rose slowly, his breathing uneven. Zoe turned abruptly, reaching into a gap between two loose boards in the wall. There's something hidden here, she said urgently, pulling out a small, weathered bundle of letters tied tightly with frayed twine. Aaron gently took the letters from her shaking hands and carefully untied them. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Danielle's careful script mixed with Kara's hurried additions. The messages spoke vividly of fear, hope, desperation, and defiance. Aaron's hands shook as he read, quietly aloud. Whoever finds this, please tell our family we fought. Tell them we never stopped believing. Zoe wiped silent tears from her cheeks. They waited for someone to find them. A sudden noise snapped Aaron from his thoughts. Tires crunching slowly over gravel. Headlights flashed briefly through cracks in the shack's walls. Aaron grabbed Zoe's arm tightly, placing a finger over his lips to silence her. They quickly moved toward a dark corner away from the door, crouching low behind an old wooden cabinet. Outside, car doors slammed, footsteps approached, and the creaking shack door opened wider. A heavy-set man stepped inside, his features partially shadowed beneath a hat. He scanned the room carefully, his flashlight beam sweeping methodically across each wall. Aaron held his breath, his body rigid. Zoe gripped his hand tightly, terrified but silent. The man moved slowly toward the chains, muttering quietly, irritation clear in his tone. He knelt briefly, examining the floor, then abruptly stood again. He moved nearer to Aaron and Zoe's hiding spot, the beam of his flashlight brushing dangerously close. Aaron could feel Zoe trembling beside him, his heart pounding so loudly he feared it would betray them. After what felt like hours, the man finally stepped outside, closing the door firmly behind him. Footsteps receded, and Aaron exhaled slowly. Relief washing through him as the engine started and the vehicle moved away, disappearing into the distance. Aaron and Zoe waited several moments longer before emerging cautiously from their hiding place, shaken but unharmed. Zoe's face was pale, her breathing shallow. "Who was that?" Aaron shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but whoever he is, he's involved. He knew exactly what to look for." As Aaron and Zoe hurried back toward their car, parked far from the shack, Aaron's mind raced furiously. He tried desperately to piece together fragments of information that now overwhelmed him. When they reached the car, Zoe quickly climbed into the passenger seat, locking her door instinctively. Aaron sat behind the wheel, catching his breath, forcing calm into his voice. "We need to tell Reeves everything. She needs to know exactly what we found." Zoe nodded, her voice trembling slightly. "We nearly got caught. Aaron, whoever that man was, he could have killed us." "I know," Aaron whispered gravely, struggling to steady his breathing. As Aaron sped away from the forest, dread gripped him more intensely than ever. After 16 years, they were finally close to answers. But those answers came wrapped in a danger far greater than he had ever anticipated. The ride back to their parents' house was tense. Aaron's fingers tightened around the steering wheel, his mind spinning. Zoe sat silently beside him, clearly unsettled by their narrow escape. Aaron pulled into the driveway, heart racing. They walked swiftly inside, where Richard and Elaine waited nervously in the living room, sensing something had gone terribly wrong. Elaine stood abruptly, eyes wide with concern. "Aaron? Zoe? What's going on?" Aaron closed the door firmly. "Sit down. We need to talk." Richard's eyes narrowed cautiously. "Talk about what?" Aaron took the photograph from his pocket and dropped it onto the coffee table. Elaine's hands trembled as she picked it up, her face pale. Richard leaned closer, breathing sharply. "Where did you get this?" "The police files. It led us to a shack in the woods." Aaron's voice shook with barely controlled anger. "Where Kara and Danielle were held captive." Richard's shoulders slumped, a painful heaviness washing over his face. Elaine's eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God, how long were they there?" Aaron stared coldly at his father. "Long enough to scratch their initials into the wall and leave letters begging for help." His voice cracked, fury rising. "Someone took them. Someone knew. And I think you know something about it." Richard stood sharply, turning away to hide his face. Elaine touched his arm gently, but he pulled away, his voice thick with emotion. "I got a ransom demand." "What?" Zoe's voice trembled with shock. Richard turned slowly back to face them, visibly broken. "Shortly after they vanished, someone called. They demanded money, $50,000, or they'd harm the girls. They warned me not to involve the police. I panicked. We didn't have the money and I didn't tell anyone. I was terrified I'd make things worse." Elaine stared at Richard, stunned. "You knew and never said anything, Richard. How could you?" "I thought I was protecting them," Richard whispered, sinking back onto the couch, covering his face, in shame. Aaron's voice turned bitter, raw. "You were protecting yourself. Do you realize what you've done?" Elaine's expression shifted to remorse as she sighed deeply. "It wasn't just your father. A few months after they disappeared, I hired a private investigator. He was good, thorough, but one day he just stopped. Said he'd received threats against his family. Told me he couldn't risk it. I was afraid too. Afraid whoever took Kara and Danielle would hurt you and Zoe if I kept pushing. Zoe's voice was weak with disbelief. You both knew something, and never told us. We were trying to protect you, Elaine pleaded desperately. You failed, Aaron said coldly, his voice bitter with betrayal. You both failed Kara and Danielle. The room fell painfully silent, the family staring at each other through fractured trust and deepening wounds. Later that night, Aaron stepped onto the porch to meet Detective Reeves privately. Her car was parked discreetly down the street, away from prying eyes. She greeted him with a tense nod, noticing immediately his shaken demeanor. I spoke with my parents, Aaron began flatly, barely controlling his anger. They knew more than they ever admitted. Dad got a ransom demand. Mom hired a PI. They hid everything. Reeves exhaled slowly, shaking her head. Aaron, this is serious. Whoever sent that ransom likely had deep connections. Your parents were right to be afraid. But wrong to stay silent, Aaron insisted angrily. Yes. You're saying we're all in danger now? Aaron asked. Reeves met his gaze steadily. I'm saying this just became far more dangerous. You need to watch yourself closely. Be careful who you trust. Aaron stared at Reeves, the weight of her warning settling over him. You know more, don't you? Reeves hesitated slightly, then nodded. I do, and it's time you did too. Tomorrow, meet me at my office. Aaron watched her leave, unease churning inside him. He returned inside, feeling isolated from his family, haunted by secrets, lies, and the bitter weight of revelations too long hidden. The following morning, Aaron arrived at Detective Reeves's office, his thoughts heavy with exhaustion and anxiety. Reeves waited behind her desk, files and photographs spread across the surface. Her expression was grave. What's going on? Aaron asked tightly, taking a seat opposite her. She handed him a photograph of a man with piercing, cold eyes. His name is Damon Gray. For years, authorities believed he was dead. Turns out he's very much alive. Aaron studied the image, recognizing immediately the man from the shack. His jaw tightened in anger. I saw him at the shack. You're saying he's behind Kara and Danielle's kidnapping? Yes, Reeves confirmed grimly. He runs a sophisticated trafficking network. We think he took your sisters and many others. He's ruthless, meticulous, and he doesn't leave loose ends. Aaron's heart pounded furiously. Then why hasn't he been caught? He's elusive, Aaron. He's got allies everywhere. Gray built his operation in the shadows, hiding in plain sight. We believe your sisters might have been trafficked. Aaron's voice became coldly determined. Then we find him. Whatever it takes. Reeves regarded Aaron carefully, noting the intensity in his eyes. You're not law enforcement, Aaron. I can't let you risk your life chasing Gray alone. I may. Not backing off, Aaron insisted forcefully. I'm not letting this slip through my fingers again. Reeves sighed reluctantly, clearly recognizing Aaron's resolve. Fine, but you'll work closely with me. Nothing reckless. Aaron nodded curtly. Agreed. Days turned into weeks, with Aaron becoming increasingly consumed by the investigation. He spent long nights poring over files, connections, and reports in Reeves's office. Gradually, his desk at the insurance firm became neglected, deadlines missed, calls unanswered. Friends called, but Aaron brushed them aside. Even Zoe found him distant, unreachable. His apartment became cluttered with documents, photographs, and maps, each piece representing a fragment of a puzzle he refused to abandon. One evening, as he stared wearily at surveillance reports of Gray's known associates, Reeves gently interrupted him. Aaron, you're burning yourself out. Aaron barely looked up. I'm close. I can feel it. You're losing yourself, Reeves warned carefully. You haven't slept properly in days. You're neglecting your job, your family. You won't help your sisters by destroying yourself. Aaron finally raised tired eyes to meet hers. They're all that matters now. Nothing else comes close. Reeves regarded him with deep empathy and concern. I understand your determination, but obsession clouds judgment. You have to step back, at least a little. Aaron shook his head sharply, eyes hardened with resolve. Stepping back means losing them again. I've lost enough. This ends when Gray's caught, and I have answers. Nothing sooner. Reeves sighed deeply, realizing further arguments were futile. Aaron had chosen his path. Driven by guilt, desperation, and the haunting absence of his sisters, he had become willing to sacrifice everything to confront the truth buried deep within Damon Gray's dark and ruthless world. It was just past midnight when Aaron pulled up behind Detective Reeves's car outside a derelict storage facility on the outskirts of town. The rusted metal gates were now swarmed by officers setting up bright floodlights, their harsh glow illuminating peeling paint and boarded-up windows. Reeves waited, her face solemn under the stark lighting, motioning Aaron to follow. "Where are we?" Aaron asked, walking quickly beside her through a cluster of uniformed police officers. "An informant led us here," Reeves replied tightly, approaching a heavily barricaded door. "We think Gray operated surveillance from this location." Two officers pried open the metal door, creaking loudly on rusted hinges. Aaron followed Reeves down concrete steps into a dank corridor. The air was stale, smelling of mold and rust. At the bottom, the hall widened into an underground room lined wall to wall with monitors and abandoned computer equipment. The screens were blank, cables hastily cut or unplugged, evidence that whoever occupied this place had fled hurriedly. "Gray knew we were coming," Reeves muttered grimly, surveying the dismantled equipment. "He's cleaning up fast." Aaron examined a series of maps pinned across the walls, locations circled and marked with cryptic notations. His heart quickened. These were places tied to Gray's victims. He felt an unsettling chill, imagining how long Gray had watched his victims hidden beneath their noses. A young officer suddenly called out, "Detective Reeves, we've got something over here." They hurried toward him, finding a row of damaged hard drives piled carelessly. Reeves immediately knelt beside them. "Can you recover anything?" "Maybe," the officer said, connecting one of the drives to his laptop. After several tense moments, he glanced up, nodding. "I've got files here, recent surveillance footage." Aaron leaned closer, his heart pounding heavily. Reeves nodded urgently. "Play it." The video flickered onto the screen. The grainy footage showed a small concrete cell, dimly lit. Aaron's breath froze as he saw a familiar figure sitting against the wall, her knees drawn protectively to her chest. "It's Danielle," Aaron whispered, his voice shaking with emotion. Reeves gently placed a hand on his shoulder, saying nothing, her own eyes fixed grimly on the screen. Danielle appeared pale and thin, her hair long and unkempt. Her eyes stared blankly ahead, filled with exhaustion and despair. She rocked, softly, whispering inaudibly to herself, a gesture Aaron remembered from her childhood when she'd been deeply afraid. "Where's Kara?" Aaron murmured, barely able to speak. They continued watching intently, hoping desperately to see any sign of her. But Danielle was alone, isolated, completely unaware she was being filmed. Aaron's chest tightened painfully, his heart aching, dread pooling heavily inside him. "How recent is this footage?" Reeves asked urgently. The officer checked the timestamp. 3 days ago. Aaron felt a surge of desperate hope mixed with panic. "She's alive. Danielle's still alive. But why only Danielle?" Reeves shook her head, troubled. "We don't know. Gray could be holding Kara somewhere else." She hesitated, unwilling to finish her sentence. Aaron closed his eyes briefly, fighting the wave of fear rising inside him. "We have to find her now. We're close. Gray knows it. He's panicking. He could hurt her." Reeves turned sharply to another officer, her voice firm. "I want every frame analyzed. Find me any detail that could pinpoint Danielle's location." "Yes, ma'am," the officer replied. Reeves stepped away, urgently issuing orders into her radio. Aaron stared numbly at the paused footage, Danielle's haunted face frozen in anguish. Later that night, Aaron sat in Reeves's office, exhausted but unable to rest. Reeves entered quietly, closing the door behind her, concern evident in her tired eyes. Aaron glanced up sharply, instantly on edge. "What's happened?" Reeves exhaled heavily, taking the seat opposite Aaron. "Gray knows we found his surveillance site. He warned us, warned me personally." Aaron's jaw tightened, anger simmering dangerously beneath his weariness. "What did he say?" "That. We're too late, and if we don't back off, Danielle will be the price." Aaron's fist clenched, his voice hardening. "We won't let that happen. We're so close now." "Aaron, listen to me," Reeves interrupted firmly. "Gray doesn't bluff. He'll act if he feels cornered. Danielle's life depends on us moving carefully. One wrong step could end this tragically." Aaron stood abruptly, pacing the small office, restless and enraged. "I can't wait around while he threatens my sister. We have to move quickly." "We will," Reeves reassured him calmly, though her voice carried a deep tension. "But Gray's expecting that. He wants you. Impulsive, reckless, angry. If you lose control now, you'll play right into his hands." Aaron paused, struggling visibly to rein himself in. Reeves stood slowly, her tone softer now, empathetic. "I understand your pain, but please, Aaron, trust me now more than ever. We have one chance to save Danielle. We can't afford mistakes." Aaron stared back at her, forcing his breathing to steady, his mind racing. "Okay," he finally conceded, his voice tight with frustration. "We'll do it your way, but I won't lose her again." Reeves nodded firmly, determination and respect clear in her eyes. "Neither will I." Aaron paced restlessly in the back room of a makeshift command center on the outskirts of town. It was well past dusk, and a police tactical team had gathered, rifles and equipment carefully laid out on long tables. Detective Nora Reeves stood at a map spread across a folding table, briefing a circle of officers. "We've intercepted communications," Reeves said, her voice clipped and focused. "Damon Gray's network is holding Danielle Bryant at an isolated farmhouse along Birch Creek Road. We move in at 0300 hours. Aaron stepped forward, tension radiating from him. "I'm going with you." An officer glanced at him skeptically, but Reeves merely nodded. "He has every right to be there. Danielle is his sister." As officers moved off to finalize preparations, Aaron stopped Reeves. "Are you sure she's there?" Reeves kept her voice steady, though worry flickered in her eyes. "We intercepted a call referencing a female detainee, codenamed D. It aligns with the location we suspect Gray's men are using as a temporary holding site." Aaron inhaled slowly, trying to quell the dread building in his chest. "I won't lose her again. I can't." Reeves placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay close to me. Our priority is rescuing your sister. Gray will expect chaos, so we must be methodical." Outside, the cool night air was still. A small convoy of unmarked SUVs stood ready, engines idling, tactical gear in place. The team silently loaded up, preparing for a swift and dangerous operation. Aaron took a seat beside Reeves, heart pounding, as headlights cut through the darkness. The farmhouse loomed ahead in faint moonlight, an old structure set far from any main road, its surrounding fields barren. A single porch light glowed against, peeling paint. The convoy halted a short distance away. Officers fanned out swiftly, approaching the perimeter under the cover of darkness. Aaron clutched his flashlight, trailing closely behind Reeves. Seconds later, a shout from an officer broke the quiet. In a blur of movement, the team stormed through the rickety front door. Splintered wood and shouts ricocheted across dim hallways. Inside, the house smelled of damp rot and stale air. Aaron's adrenaline soared as he followed the team through. A narrow corridor. Rooms were searched swiftly, each one empty or filled only with neglected furniture. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from deeper in the house, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness. Aaron flattened himself against a wall, heart thundering. Reeves signaled for him to stay put and advanced with her weapon raised. Two of Gray's men fired desperately from behind an overturned table in what appeared to be a large dining room. Officers returned fire with precise shots. Within minutes, the men were subdued, pinned to the floor, and disarmed. Reeves gave Aaron the go-ahead to proceed. "Check the basement," an officer called from the far side of the room. "We found a locked door." Aaron raced behind them, nearly tripping down the steep stairs. The door below had been busted open, revealing a cramped space lined with cobwebs. An overpowering odor of mildew assaulted his senses. His flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a series of small cells partitioned with metal bars. Aaron's heart pounded uncontrollably as he spotted a motionless figure slumped against a wall in the farthest cell. "Danielle!" he shouted, rushing forward. Officers forced the lock with bolt cutters, and Aaron dropped to his knees at her side. She looked painfully thin, her face hollowed from malnourishment, eyes half closed in exhaustion. Her wrists bore raw, infected marks. Still she was alive. Aaron gently cradled her, his voice trembling. "Danielle, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, a faint glimmer of recognition. Her lips parted in a breathless sound. "Aaron," she rasped weakly. Tears stung his eyes as he pulled her close, relief flooding him. Around them, officers began checking other cells, discovering them empty. "We got you," he whispered. "We're taking you home." Outside the farmhouse, medical personnel stood ready. Aaron carefully carried Danielle up the creaking steps, shielded by the officers. Flashlights illuminated her frail form, revealing bruises across her arms and a trembling pallor. Suddenly, gunshots cracked the air from behind the house. Shouts erupted. Damon Gray himself had appeared, flanked by more associates. Officers rushed to intercept, exchanging terse commands. Aaron held Danielle protectively, adrenaline surging once more. From the corner of his eye, Aaron glimpsed Gray, the same man from the shack. His expression was cold, calculating. An officer shouted for him to surrender. Gray fired back, forcing the team to duck for cover. In the confusion, Gray vanished into the surrounding darkness. Vehicles screeched off in the distance. Reeves yelled after him in frustration, but to no avail. Damon Gray had escaped. At the ambulance, Danielle clung weakly to Aaron, her breathing ragged and shallow. The paramedics gently urged Aaron aside to examine her. He watched anxiously, wanting reassurance that she'd survive. Reeves approached, her features etched with tension. "He got away," she said softly, regret heavy in her tone. Aaron looked at his sister's unconscious form, tears slipping down his cheeks. "Kara," he whispered. "She's still out there." Danielle's eyes fluttered open for an instant. Her voice was barely audible. "Kara isn't coming back," she breathed, pain etched in every syllable. Before Aaron could respond, Danielle lost consciousness. Panic seized him, but paramedics quickly reassured him she was stable, just overwhelmed. He stayed by her side, trembling as the ambulance doors shut, racing off into the night. While Danielle had been saved, it felt heartbreakingly incomplete. Aaron sank onto the farmhouse porch, trying to steady himself. He'd found one sister, only to face an agonizing possibility. Kara might truly be lost forever. 3 days later, Aaron sat quietly in a stiff plastic chair beside Danielle's hospital bed. She stirred, drifting in and out of fragile consciousness. Medical staff had cleaned her wounds and started her on IV nutrition. Though her gaunt cheeks and tired eyes showed how much she had endured, she was improving gradually. A gentle knock at the door signaled Detective Reeves's arrival. She offered Aaron a small nod before sitting on the opposite side of the bed. "How's she doing?" Aaron answered quietly. "Better physically, still shaky." Reeves studied Danielle's sleeping form, guilt lining her features. "We'll need a statement soon, but I want her stable first. We owe her that." Aaron's gaze shifted to the window, where the late afternoon sun filtered in. "We owe her a lot more than that." That evening, Danielle woke fully for the first time, propping herself against pillows. Her voice trembled when she spoke, each word colored by raw trauma. Aaron drew close, gently taking her hand. A flicker of relief appeared in her eyes, but a painful sadness followed. "We were taken to so many places," she began haltingly. "They forced us to work, threatened us every time we tried to fight back." Her eyes glistened, and she swallowed hard. "They used Kara against me and me against her. If one of us acted out, they'd punish the other." Aaron's throat tightened. He glanced at Reeves, who gave a supportive nod. "Take your time," she said gently. Danielle nodded shakily. "Kara never stopped trying to protect me. She'd distract them, cause trouble, so they'd hurt her instead." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "She was brave, Aaron. Braver than I ever was. But one day she tried to help me escape and she got caught." Aaron listened, his heart hammering painfully. "What happened?" "She told me to run. I panicked, hesitated." Danielle's face twisted with guilt. "That gave them time to catch both of us. They beat her. I don't know how badly. Then they separated us. After that, I never saw her again." Danielle's voice shook with fear and sorrow. "They told me Kara was gone for good. I don't know if it was true, but I never saw her again." The day after Danielle's revelations, Elaine and Richard arrived at the hospital. They stepped inside quietly, eyes red with worry. Danielle stared at them from her bed, her expression torn between relief and betrayal. Elaine tentatively approached, tears already forming. "Oh, my baby," she whispered, reaching out gently. Danielle let herself be embraced, though her posture remained tense. Richard hung back, his face etched with regret. "I'm so sorry," he managed finally, his voice quivering. If we'd known." Danielle's eyes flickered with pain. "You were supposed to protect us." Aaron stood at the window, arms folded, anger building. He spun around, directing his frustration at Richard. "You had that ransom call. Maybe if you'd told us or the police, we could have saved them earlier." Elaine turned with pleading eyes. "Aaron, please!" "No," he interrupted sharply, struggling to maintain composure. "We lost 16 years, and now Kara might be gone." Danielle sank deeper against her pillows, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I don't want to fight," she whispered, her voice frail. "Not now." A heavy silence settled in the room. Aaron turned away, exhaling shakily. Hours later, Zoe arrived, quietly joining Danielle's bedside. Tension lingered between their parents and Aaron. Elaine stared at the floor, too overwhelmed to speak. Richard stood near the doorway, shoulders slumped, eyes full of shame. Danielle, exhausted, dozed fitfully, burdened by the trauma she had only begun to voice. When Danielle finally drifted off to a restless sleep, Zoe gently led Aaron into the corridor. She searched his face, her voice subdued. "She's alive. That's what matters now." "Is it?" Aaron asked hollowly. "Kara's gone. We have no proof she's alive. Danielle believes she's dead." Zoe tried to swallow the lump in her throat. Aaron leaned back against the wall, anguish etched into every line of his face. "I promised myself I'd find them both." A nurse gently reminded them of visiting hours, and they returned to Danielle's room. Elaine and Richard whispered quietly, guilt visible in their posture. The weight of blame, regrets, and sorrow pressed down on everyone. Although Danielle was safe, the Bryant family was crumbling anew. Danielle's discharge from the hospital came with strict advisories for ongoing care. She returned to the Bryant family home, looking frail, wrapped in an oversized sweater, her steps tentative and slow. Aaron stood beside her, steadying her with a gentle hand whenever she appeared unsteady. Elaine rushed to open the front door, eyes shining with relief. Richard lingered a step behind, guilt never far from his expression. Inside, the house felt subdued. Zoe had cleared a spare bedroom, converting it into a tranquil space so Danielle could recover in privacy. Through the narrow hallway, they passed pictures of Kara and Danielle as children. Once a source of comfort, now a haunting reminder of what remained unresolved. Danielle glanced at the photos, her eyes flickering with pain. Despite being safe, she carried the burden of years lost and the uncertainty of Kara's fate. After she settled in, Detective Nora Reeves arrived with a small file of documents, her tone gentle but urgent. "Danielle, I know this is difficult," Reeves began, pulling up a chair in the living room. "But any details you can remember might help us dismantle Gray's network." Danielle, exhausted but resolute, nodded. "I'll do everything I can," she said softly, anxiety deep in the dark circles under her eyes. Yet a determined set to her jaw betrayed a fierce desire to help. She described locations she vaguely recalled: warehouses, basements, hidden rooms, most of them half forgotten, seen only in fleeting moments of captivity. Aaron observed, arms folded, absorbing every word. He offered supportive nods, occasionally exchanging a quick glance with Reeves. At each new clue, Reeves made meticulous notes, aware that the slightest detail might lead to other victims, or an opening to finally apprehend Damon Gray. Though Danielle's memories came haltingly, the significance of her testimony was unmistakable. When the interview ended, Reeves rose carefully, gathering her notes. "Thank you, Danielle. Your cooperation might save lives." Danielle managed a trembling smile. "I have to believe that it might be the only way Kara's efforts weren't in vain." In the weeks that followed, the Bryant household struggled to regain any semblance of normalcy. Danielle underwent daily therapy sessions, her doctor cautioning the family about post-traumatic stress. Nightmares plagued her, and some mornings she'd wake in a panic, scanning the corners of her room for threats. Elaine tried to soothe her with soft reassurances, while Richard hovered anxiously, doing his best to rebuild trust in his daughter's eyes. Aaron spent long hours away, only returning late at night. He continued feeding information to Reeves, scouring old files and forging new leads. Damon Gray, still at large, cast a deep shadow over every step they took. Each day, the authorities unearthed more evidence of Gray's sprawling network: illicit finances, hidden properties, possible accomplices. But the man himself remained elusive. One afternoon, Aaron found Danielle in the back garden, aimlessly plucking at dried leaves on a potted plant. Her thin frame seemed engulfed by the sweater she wore, and a haunted look clouded her features. Still, she managed a faint, grateful smile when Aaron sat beside her. "How are you holding up?" he asked quietly. Danielle sighed. "I'm feeling a lot better," she admitted. "But I can't stop thinking about Kara. I wish I knew for sure. If she's alive, if she's—" She stopped, unable to finish the thought. Aaron set a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not giving up," he said firmly. "Even if everyone else does, I won't." She exhaled shakily, nodding. "Then neither will I." This journey, though painful and uncertain, had only begun.